All right, moving right along as we always do. Minneapolis defunding its police force by $8 million, but still saying that it's going to maintain the same level of manpower and efficiency is not the only big news that came out this week. Remember again how we started off this edition of the Rolling Stone. We quoted Lenin again. Sometimes decades pass and nothing happens, and sometimes weeks pass and decades happen. Well, do you like spy movies, Mr. DeVere? I think that's a quote from that movie, The Kingsman, I think, with Samuel L. Jackson. Do you like spy movies, Mr. DeVere? Well, do we like spy movies? Of course we love spy movies. We love James Bond. We love Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. My personal favorite is number 4. Heck, I even liked the reboot movie that they did of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's how much, I really like spy genres. I even sort of enjoyed Angelina's forgotten espionage thriller Assault. I thought that was actually mildly entertaining, pretty good entertaining. But we like spy movies and spy stories because we don't actually want to live in the world of cloak and dagger spy and enemy spy, agent, counteragent. We don't want to. Because if we actually wanted to live in that world, we would give up the James Bond franchise. We would stop watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and we would actually apply somewhere to actually be a secret agent. I think that the more that we like a genre, the more that we would actually hate being in that genre. It's sort of a reverse psychology, but I think that it's true, and I might have to expand on that idea at a future date. But anyway, we all love spies, we love spy movies, because at the end, we all know that the good guys are going to win. Bond is going to save the world. The bad guys are going to die. However, an apropos and poetic means that Bond or Ethan Hunt figures out at the climax of the movie, and basically the world lives happily ever after. Well, in real life, that's not the case. And real life just landed us a huge sock on the jaw with a huge revelation that came out this week. It was originally published in Axios.com. Headline, exclusive! Suspected Chinese spy targeted California politicians. Oh yes, the Chinese. Good old Chairman Xi and his Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. The murderers of the Uyghurs and Chinese Catholics and other dissident Christians who refuse to actually kowtow to the state-sponsored churches. China, which is the world's #1 polluter, emitting more pollutants into the air than the US and the EU combined, which has until recently had a one-child policy, meaning that women who got pregnant after their allotted one child were forced to have abortion. Some of them were forcibly sterilized. This China, which I made a whole video about, at the end of spring, about the war with China. Also, it's the creator of the coronavirus. How could I have forgotten that? Thank you, Chairman Xi, very kindly, for the horrible, horrible year and for the 250,000 people that you've killed with your virus created in that Wuhan Frankenstein laboratory of yours. This same China is now sending over enemy agents to the United States, to our country, to worm us away from the inside. And this is how the Axios story begins. A suspected Chinese intelligence operative developed extensive ties with local and national politicians, including a U.S. congressman, in what U.S. officials believe was a political intelligence operation run by China's main civilian spy agency between 2011 and 2015. Axios found in a year-long investigation. The alleged operation offers a rare window into how Beijing has tried to gain access to and influence political circles. While the suspected operative's activities appear to have ended during the Obama administration, concern about Beijing's influence operations have spanned President Trump's time in office and will continue to be a core focus for U.S. counterintelligence during the Biden administration. The woman who was the spy was named Fang or Fong Fong. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it. Let me know, please, in the comment section below. It's F-A-N-G. That's how you spell her name. Fang or Fong Fong. And as many people, including one of my few contemporary heroes, Mark Stein, pointed out, it's perfect because she sounds like she could have walked out straight from a Bond novel or a Bond screenplay. So, Fang, or Christine Fang, as she was also known in the United States, this is how she operated. Okay? Fang's friends and acquaintances said she was in her late 20s, early 30s when she was based in the U.S. and was enrolled as a student at a Bay Area university. So she came in allegedly to study at an American university, but studies were the furthest thing from Christine's mind. She used, again from Axios, she used political gatherings, civic society conferences, campaign rallies, and campus events to connect with elected officials and other prominent figures. According to U.S. intelligence officials, Bay Area political operatives, former students, and current and former elected officials who knew her. U.S. intelligence officials believed she was overseeing likely unwitting sub-agents whom she helped place in local political and congressional offices. Fang attended regional conferences for U.S. mayors, which allowed her to grow her network of politicians across the country. Get this. She also engaged in sexual or romantic relationships with at least 2 mayors of Midwestern cities over a period of about 3 years, according to one U.S. intelligence official and one former elected official. In fact, one of these mayors, I think, was in his 80s, and he asked her point blank, "Why are you interested in me?" And her response was, "Well, I just want to improve my English." Yes. And he fell for it. Apparently, I don't know, male ego, male libido, which is still running rampant at 87, which is something that I really don't want in my imagination. But that is how Christine Fang or Fang operated. Now, I'm just going to say it, the really horrifying aspect of the story is that U.S. congressman that she was connected with was none other than Eric Swalwell, congressman from California. So, this is also from Axios, okay? Fang took part in fundraising activity for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign, according to a Bay Area political operative and a current U.S. intelligence official. Swalwell's office was directly aware of these activities on its behalf, the political operative said. The same political operative who witnessed Fang fundraising for Swalwell's behalf found no evidence of illegal contributions. Fang helped place at least one intern in Swalwell's office, according to those same 2 people, and interacted with Swalwell at multiple events over the course of several years. Now, it gets even better, because Eric Swalwell, guess what? You want to guess what committee he sits on in the House of Representatives? Take a wild guess. It's the House Intelligence Committee. The committee that is devoted, ostensibly, to actually making sure that enemy agents don't pry away our secrets from us. The same congressional committee, which, again, supposedly, is supposed to be engaged with and defending national security, our sovereignty, from the likes of enemy agents and enemy powers and hostile governments and nations. Yeah, that same intelligence committee, Eric Swalwell, who was buddy-buddy with a woman, a very pretty woman, I must admit, who now happens to be outed as a Chinese foreign spy for Chairman Xi's Communist Party, is sitting on the Intelligence Committee. They have a Chinese friend on the Intelligence Committee. Now, it gets even better than that, friends, because Eric Swalwell in response to direct peppering questions from our fearless news hawks, he has actually refused to say whether he and Swalwell were more than just friends, if you know what I mean. He's absolutely refused, which means, of course, they were doing the old devil's tango, because if they weren't, he, of course, would have come out and said, of course I didn't do that. She was just someone who helped raise money for me, which would be bad enough. Don't misunderstand me, gang. That would be bad enough. But if he hadn't been bumping into, quite physically, the Chinese honeypot, he would have just come out and said so. So obviously he is. So not only do we have a man who was getting money raised for his re-election campaign by a Chinese agent, but he was banging the Chinese agent as well. And it gets even better than that, gang. Because when the FBI finally made a move and decided that Fang was a foreign agent, they didn't arrest her. They didn't swoop down, grab her, and say, okay, now you're going to play for our side. You're going to pretend that you're spying for your bosses in Beijing, but you're actually going to be working for us, sweet things. You know, sweet tooth, sweet cheeks, whatever you want to call her. This is how it's going to work now. This is how you're going to play from now on. They didn't do anything like that. They didn't arrest her. They didn't make her double agent. They didn't deport her after debriefing her. They didn't do anything like that. What they did is that they actually went to Swalwell's office and said, hey, you know what? Your honeypot money raiser over here, who also happens to be your girlfriend, she's a Chinese spy. And then Swalwell told Fang, hey, the FBI is onto you. I can't be seen with you anymore. Oh, and you might want to hightail it out of the country, which she did. She fled the country in 2015 because the FBI tipped Swalwell off and Swalwell tipped her off. And yet, after all that, Swalwell is still seating his hands. He's still sitting his carcass down on that intelligence committee in the House of Representatives. Talk about a breach of national security. For 4 years we were saying that a couple of meetings with someone who might possibly have had connections with some people who might have had connections with Moscow meant that the entire Trump administration was some sort of sock puppet for a resurrected Kremlin? What is this? What is this? Honest question. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But it gets even better. It gets even better, gang. In one sense, this has been a huge eye-opening experience for everyone who has been reading this story and following this story. Because the Democrats, they're not going to remove Swalwell. If we lived in an even halfway healthy, halfway commonsensical society, Swalwell would be off of that intelligence committee so fast he wouldn't even know what hit him. In fact, he probably would be expelled from Congress because you're a liability at that point. You've been compromised by the Chinese. Who knows what they have on Swalwell? And not only that, but the fact that you can't have someone who is compromised to that extent anywhere near the levers of power, the levers of information and influence, because that's what Beijing wants. It wants information because the Chinese are actually, they're smart little buggers. They're smart bastards. They realize that the smart war to fight is the war where you don't have to fire an actual single shot. While the geniuses in Washington, D.C., in the Pentagon still are, creating war games with tanks and everything like that, the Chinese are slowly but surely taking over the world without even firing a shot. Yeah, there are still some skirmishes from time to time, like at the border between China and India, like we saw over this past summer too. But more likely than not, It's done subtly. The knife is slowly inserted in and slowly twisted, and you don't even realize that you're bleeding your guts out all over the floor until it's too late. For example, we talked about this a couple of months back. China now has the largest navy in the world. China now has super weapons, according to the Pentagon, that probably makes anything that we have, a clown car. China, it was even reported, has been, with gene editing technology, has been working to create super soldiers. You don't have to fire a shot when A, you already hold all the aces in terms of military power, and then B, you hold all the aces, as we talked back in the spring, of economic and pharmaceutical power. Remember, what was it, 95% of our ibuprofen comes from China. Penicillin comes from China. The majority of our rare earth elements, which we use to make laptops and magnets and iPhones and iPads and all these other cool gadgets that we have become vampirically attached to, all come from China. That is why you can't have the Chinese anywhere connected to anyone near the levers of power, because that's how the Chinese actually operate. They want the newest weapons, yes, but more than that, they want information, because if you have information on your enemy, you can checkmate him before he even realizes that he was in a competition and or a war with you. That's what the Chinese want. So if we lived in a halfway healthy and commonsensical society, Swalwell would be out. Nancy Pelosi refused to actually put Swalwell out, which is a wonderful indicator of how well the left actually loves democracy. The next time Nancy Pelosi or anyone else on the left says, we must defend American democracy, we must do this for American democracy, blah, 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 until you want to vomit, remind them, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, or just write a letter to them. Write an email to them and say, if you really gave a damn about American democracy, about national security, about sovereignty, about the American people, about the American way of life, why does Eric Swalwell still have a seat in Congress after being compromised by the CCP? Ask them that. And that really is the real scandal here, gang. Not so much that a Chinese honeypot agent was doing what foreign agents always do. It's that we even lack the civilizational confidence and the seriousness to take it seriously. The FBI certainly didn't take this seriously. Swalwell, he didn't care. The FBI didn't take this seriously. They did not care about the country. Swalwell sure as hell didn't care about the country. And now we see that the Democrat Party and the left itself doesn't care about the country, because they are going to turn a blind eye to this. They will turn an absolute blind eye to this. And the best part, the absolute best part, the cherry on top of it all, is that we don't even know how many more Fongs are out there right now weaving their webs. This is from the New York Post, originally published on Fox News. Headline, China honey trap plot could span thousands. Repeat, thousands of operatives. There could be thousands of Fongs banging Midwestern mayors, fundraising for left-leaning politicians, and we don't even know it. And what's more, even if our intelligence community, the people who are supposed to keep our country and us physically safe from foreign invaders, foreign influence, they're not going to do a damn thing about it either, because they lack the seriousness to actually grow the brass inside of themselves, inside of their stomachs and their spines and their balls, to do what is necessary, to take the threat seriously, because no one wants to stand up to the CCP. No one wants to do that. First of all, because the big money is all in China. Second of all, because they don't actually want us to become independent of China, because that would entail economic unrest for a while, because our economy is so dependent on China, which means people might suffer, people would get mad, people would vote them out of office. But three, because they don't love this country, they don't love you, they don't care about you, they don't give a damn about anything except their own power. That's what they want, their own power and their own checkbooks. And as long as they have those things, they don't care. They could be taking orders directly from Beijing, and as long as they were able to still call themselves congressman, senator, governor, president, whatever it is, they would be happy. They would willingly become slavish slaves of Beijing to keep their titles and to keep the money coming in. Which is just another reason why we need to have a revolution in order to burn the whole mess down and rebuild it. That is story number 2.